thank you so much for joining us here today. It's honestly a pleasure and a privilege to have you at the Oxford Union.
Thanks for having us.
So, Kate and Helen, just to start off, I wanted to ask, could you tell us a bit about your journey into sport and how you felt empowered to become amazing Olympic athletes?
It definitely didn't start off even as a dream for me. I think my parents were both sporty, so they were both PE teachers, and so sport was just in the house. It's what we did. And I didn't actually start playing hockey till I went to secondary school. So I did a lot of gymnastics, a lot of swimming. And then when I was about 11 or 12, I went to my local state school, and hockey was one of the sports we did in PE. And the thing I loved about it, I think initially, was that it was a team sport. And I was painfully shy as a youngster. And so I found my voice. I found some confidence from somewhere. And being able to be in this team with lots of different people, girls in my year who I wouldn't dare to even look at on a normal school day, but we would play together in this team, and there was something really special about that. But as a youngster, the Olympics was just this fantastical thing that was on the TV every 4 years. I never ever dreamt that it was ever going to be for me.
Yeah. Same for me in that I kind of grew up in a really sporty family. I've got 3 older brothers, and I kind of was born into an environment where a stick was put in my hand and a ball was at my feet and a racket was in my hand. It was just part and parcel of who I was and what we did. My dad used to play hockey and cricket, and so they were 2 of our main sports. And I played hockey, cricket, football, tennis, to all a reasonable level actually. And I joined my local hockey club when I was 7 years old. That was the first time that I then started to play it as a thing, a proper thing. And I just got quite good at it, went up through the ages and started getting selected for teams. But like Kate, I just did it because I loved it. It was never something that I thought either A, I could be good at, or well, certainly to the level that we ended up getting to, or B, was actually something that we could do as a career, because actually it wasn't back then, because we played hockey, which was and still is really an amateur sport. It's only really the international level where you can actually start to, I wouldn't say earn a living, but you can do it full time. And also we're women, and those opportunities back then were just not available in sport at all. That's starting to change. We're getting somewhere. We just played because we loved it.
Yeah, that's definitely incredible. And I know, Helen, you mentioned 7 years old. Like, that is so young. And I know both of you started playing hockey. So I wanted to ask, as, in school students, how did you kind of balance your academics and other aspects of your life with playing hockey and with your athletic side?
I mean, a lot of failure, I would say. And I think having teachers, parents who were teachers, I think certainly helped. But it was definitely about being organised for me. Academics weren't the thing that I necessarily put as my priority. I knew the importance of studying and getting qualifications and moving on kind of through the system academically, but it definitely wasn't the thing that I was most focused on. And so it was literally for me sitting down with a kind of weekly calendar and saying, okay, when does sport fit in? When does my training fit in? Because from the age of 15, 16, 17, we were going to the gym, we were doing extra running sessions along with fitting in all the hockey. So you had to really piece together where studying, revision time went in. And so for me, it was just a case of being organised. But, I think, I do look back and I think, I don't know how I juggled it, but I think it's getting harder and harder actually for youngsters to juggle that academic and sporting life. And
I think actually, and I missed a lot of school with cricket as well, actually, but also hockey. And when we were training for the Sydney Olympics, we had a week on and a week off. So a week on training at Lilleshall National Sports Centre, and then we'd then we'd be a week back home. And that was during my second A-level year. So I basically missed half of my second A-level year. And it's the same as Kate, like, sport was my priority in my head. I remember a conversation I had with my English teacher when I was doing my GCSEs, and she kind of said to me, right, so the Olympics is in a couple of years' time. That will be your A-level year. You know, if you had to choose between A-levels and going to the Olympics, what would you choose? And I kind of said, well, I'll go to the Olympics, of course. You can do your A-levels anytime.
Yeah.
You know, to give you an idea of that, that's my psyche. That was what I was about. And I completely understand that's not the case for everybody. But in terms of balancing it, you know, I had to learn to communicate. And it actually was a really great lesson in that respect. I had to learn how to communicate with teachers and pre-plan and look ahead and have some good conversations with teachers around coursework and when it needed to be in, and not just go up to them the day before and say, oh, sorry, miss, I've not been able to do this because I've had all the hockey and cricket, and that just doesn't wash. But if you go up, you know, a few weeks in advance and have those conversations and actually plan together. So in that respect, actually, it really taught me some good, valuable life skills.
Yeah, I know you mentioned missing like almost half of your A-level year. How do you think that kind of impacted your friendships? Were your friends kind of supportive of your sports career, or was there a bit of drama in that sense?
Well, for me, there wasn't drama in a sense, but sport definitely impacted my school life, because I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it was because the others weren't really necessarily interested in it, or I just wasn't that kind of person. But, you know, my friends started going out on a Friday night, and I had a game on a Saturday, and they would ask me to begin with, oh, do you want to come out? And I'd be like, oh, sorry, I can't, I've got hockey. And then they stopped asking. And actually the last kind of 2 years of my school life, this is GCSE, even before A-level, school for me was about going and getting an education. It wasn't necessarily a joyful, I didn't, you know, don't get me wrong, I was absolutely fine. I wasn't unhappy. But it was literally about going there and going to the lessons and then going home and going and play sport, to be honest with you. So that was, yeah, it definitely did impact it, but I don't see it as a negative. I was getting my joy and my experience from somewhere else.
Yeah, I suppose for me there was a definite turning point. So, as Helen said, kind of started playing, and then you go to county trials, and then for me it was Greater Manchester, and then went to North of England trials, and then kind of junior England, and you're in the system. And I was selected my first year for England under 16s, and then the second year I would have been 15, and I was dropped. So I was, you know, age 15, and had, you know, this letter come through the post, and had all the emotions that you get when you've been dropped or deselected, you know, embarrassment and shame and just all that failure. And my mum asked me just a brilliant question, you know, what do you want to do about it? And, you know, I was going through that initially, that very, you know, it's somebody else's fault, blaming the coach, blaming the other players. It was, you know, everybody else's fault but mine. And actually it forced me to look at myself and what actually I was doing with my life. And at that point, not a great deal. I had no real dreams or aspirations, and I was, you know, going out. I was the one going out drinking on a Friday night, and you know, just going down to the park and just doing things I just didn't need to be doing. And so from that point on, I chose, and as Helen said, it didn't feel like a sacrifice because it felt like a real positive choice. I'm going to actually say goodbye to these friendships, and I'm going. I mean, friendships it's a bit of a loose term, but goodbye to these people. I'm going to say they are all going to this college, well, I'm going to go to this college and study where none of my friends or anybody really from my school went. So that I could just focus on getting my A-levels so I could get to university and play and train near to the club where I wanted to play at. So from that kind of point on, I definitely, and then all of my friends, and they remain, all of my friends and wife and are now from hockey. Then that's what hockey has given me, that not just camaraderie, but deep friendships that will last a lifetime. Much far greater and far deeper than I think I had at kind of school age, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how much commitment, like at such a young age, you've had to put in. And I was just wondering, is there anyone in particular who inspired you to kind of get into hockey, get into sport, you know, put it at the forefront? Any role models?
I mean, for me, my mum, but my PE teacher, Mrs. Kinder, who I still do keep in touch with a little bit, and she I think great teachers and great educators have this wonderful care, first and foremost, for the people that they are in their care, but also to pass on a passion, to give that passion over to others, and to make that their passion, and to say that this is possible to show hope and belief. And she totally did that for me. I wouldn't, she was the one that sent me to county trials. I wouldn't have ever put myself forward for anything like that. And she was just that voice of, no, you can do this. I believe in you. And which I think as a young person is just so powerful. So yeah, Mrs. Kinder for me would definitely be it.
Yeah, I think for me, there wasn't really any one specific person specifically for hockey. I think just in general, my family, my brothers always say that I owe them everything because it's down to them that I managed to reach the level that I reached. And in some respects, it's true. I had a ready-made 2-on-2, which is the most ideal training for any kind of game sport. So thankful for that, and I guess the freedom that my mum allowed me to go and live my life with. She could have been someone who said, no, you have to do these A-levels, you have to go to that university, and I didn't have that, and I'm thankful that I didn't have that pressure.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. I think obviously you guys have won gold at Rio, and that's such an incredible experience, and something that made the whole nation and the whole country proud. I wanted to ask, how did that feel for you? Finding out that you'd won gold, being able to share that moment together. How was that experience like?
These aren't just smelly socks that we randomly brought in. These actually have some quite precious metal in. And this is seeing as we're talking about it, this is the lovely gold one, which you can have a look at afterwards if you so wish.
I think this is my first time seeing one in real life.
Yeah, get hold of it, get involved, yeah.
It's heavy.
That's what we all said on the podium, round the necks going, oh, God, that's heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. So it must have been so surreal. How did you feel in the moment?
I think as soon as that goal went in and we'd won, it was just every emotion under the sun, just delight, excitement. There was relief, actually, if I'm honest. I think for us, we'd been in the team for nearly 18 years, and this was going to be our last chance. This was our 4th Olympic Games, our last chance to do it, and so relief was very much up there as an emotion. And then I just remember standing on the podium, and it was pride. It was just so proud of. Well, firstly myself, and I think we forget to say that about ourselves sometimes. And then it was the people on the podium with me, the staff. It was in particular those that missed out and that were in the wider squad but were sitting at home either watching or not watching, probably in tears somewhere, crying. And it was just proud of us and what we had created as a squad. The culture that had got us to that point was so incredibly special, and that was very hard earned. It wasn't easy by any stretch, and so that was my lasting emotion for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to steal your story.
Okay.
But Helen tells a lovely story of kind of being in the change room, because it felt like a blur. Once Holly Pern-Webb had scored that goal, and there was running and shouting and screaming, and there were tears and there was laughter, and just getting it all out. And then you have the running back into the change room eventually, and you have to put on this special medal outfit that you take with you. And thankfully in a gold silver medal playoff, that you're going to be able to put that podium tracksuit on. For the bronze medal game in London, we had to take that tracksuit not knowing whether we were going to put it on or not. So this time we knew at least we were going to put this on. But it was leggings and a top, and there was clothes everywhere. There was noise and a kerfuffle. There was mascara being reapplied and hair being done. And you go back out there, and then you go back into the change room after the medal ceremony, and then there's just quiet, apart from the probably fingernails tapping on phones, because we'd come off our phones for 2 weeks. And but just the silence and just us. And it was just that very, just lovely, intimate space where it was just the players in there. And we were, Helen says she sat down and she kind of looked down and, this is it. And we've done it. And I think that's such a special moment that nobody else shared but us. And something that we'll always kind of have that connects us, bonds us together as that group of women. And it felt very serene and, once in a lifetime for us anyway.
Yeah, definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And I also know it was a great moment of national pride for everyone. I think it must have been quite hectic in the following days, the following weeks. How did you guys feel seeing just how proud everyone was of you?
Oh, yeah, we were shocked, weren't we? When we heard the figures that had watched, when we're hearing kind of 9-10 million that had watched on the BBC and then however many listening on the radios. And I think one of the first memories that we had of coming home was at the airport, and so many fans had come to welcome us back. And one of the things that stood out was when we, going through all these fans, and then we started seeing little kids in their hockey strip, which you don't see. You see kids in football kit all over the place, but that there was somebody in their Surbiton kit from top to bottom, and all the different clubs, and just thought, wow, like these people are proud to be hockey players, and we've helped to do that. And then we, like you say, we went to a lot of events. I think we got whisked to a hotel, and then we were straight on the One show that evening, and it was kind of a bit like that for a good few months. We escaped actually to Holland because we were playing in the Netherlands that season. For a little bit, and then it was madness. But the lovely thing was that pretty much down to everybody, they would all congratulate us. They'd say well done and all that kind of stuff, but they'd always say as well, you just look like a team, like a proper team, and we wanted to be in your team. And like Claire Balding wanted to be on our WhatsApp group and was in our WhatsApp group for a little bit. Everybody just was so involved. And I think for us, again, I keep saying this, we played in the team for so long, we'd never experienced anything like that. People wanted to be in our team, and that was really special to have created that. And some, things we'd never forget from those few weeks when we returned.
Yeah. I think we've got such a history of team sports, but because of the history of sport, it's predominantly male team sport, so whether it's football or rugby or cricket. And I think to have a successful Olympic team, women's team, I think was something a bit different for people. And the rugby women, England women have been very successful, and I think the Lionesses, the women's football team, are getting more and more successful. And I think we like to. There's something about that team. What's it called? I can't think what it is. It's esprit de corps, the kind of the spirit, the feeling that you have when you're part of that team. It just gives that. It's got that positive energy and that vibe. As Helen said, it's magnetic. You want to be a part of it, and I think to have that from a women's team was something I think special for people, which was really nice.
Definitely. I think special is definitely the word, and I know a lot of young girls would have been watching that. How do you feel knowing that you're a role model for so many young girls who want to get into sports? How does that feel for you? Is it a lot of pressure? How are you kind of dealing with that?
It's definitely, it's a bit surreal in the beginning because it's not something you sign up to be or to do. You're just thinking about being the best hockey player that you can be. And then I remember being a youngster at one of the very first tournaments, and kind of a young girl asking for my autograph, and I was like, this is a bit strange, why did you want one? So weird. I don't think I even had an autograph at that point. I make one up on the spot. But then, I think as I certainly got older and understood that influence, the impact, and thought about the people that had impacted me in my life, I definitely took it very seriously. And I think we thought about it within the team, and so that then transcended and into our behaviours outside of the team as well. So, the standards that you set, the things that you ask of yourself, the responsibility you have to your teammates is very real. You're impacting them every day, and I think then it's understanding that outside of this lovely bubble, outside of this team bubble, you are also having that same impact. And then yeah, it's just being able to go into schools and now to be able to, hand the medals over and say, this can be you one day, and look a young girl in the eye and say, I have sat where you've sat. I get quite emotional about it because it's that hope and that belief and that passing on again that passion to say, look, you can achieve incredible things. It is within you. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but there is that within you, and I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, and it was actually part of what we wanted to be about. It was part of our team vision for Rio. Our vision for Rio was to be the difference, create history, inspire the future, and so we took our role as role models, seriously. We believed that we were, and we wanted to do that as best we can. And actually, it wasn't just about girls either. I think that's the important bit to kind of remember, is that hopefully young boys would have been watching that and realizing, women play sport too, and that's okay, and starting to shift that dial a little bit. Which is really important, and that was actually really great, because there were young boys who looked up to us as role models, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, I definitely think you've both made a huge contribution in terms of changing the culture around women in sports. And I know we see these gold medals and we're like, wow, this is amazing, but obviously there was a long process to get there, and obviously there were many ups and downs. I know, Kate, you had an injury in the 2012 Olympics. I just wanted to ask, that was obviously a very painful experience. So how did you deal with that? And was there any point where you felt like this might be, the end of your career playing hockey?
I was really lucky in my career that the only kind of major injuries that I suffered were acute injuries, because I was a defender who was far too competitive and put her head in the way quite a lot. And so I fractured my jaw in the first game of the London Olympic Games. Although it was quite traumatic in terms of what it looked like and the surgery that I had to have and the quick turnaround. So I missed 2 games. I had surgery. I had some metal plates because I basically fractured it kind of from here all the way to the back. So they put in some metal plates, but it was all kind of internal, and the swelling went down, and I had the best care from just the best surgeons and doctors, and I just had a brilliant team. The team were amazing, and I was able to come back and play a full part. But it's funny because it's one of those things we say that sometimes the external view we can get focused on the kind of the sensationalized, or what looks to be like and it was a big moment. It was the Olympic Games where you think, Helen had triple surgeries on her ankle and double surgeries on her back, and there were players in the team that had ACL reconstructions and some major surgery and had rehabbed through that, some of them taking a year, 2 years. And so it's whether it's acute or whether it's a long-term thing, there's definitely a psychological impact to that, and it's a real trial, and you have to find ways to navigate those difficult moments, and it's really hard, whether that's over a week or whether it's over 2 years. It's about thinking about what is that inner strength, what is that what is your inspiration, what is your motivation, how are you going to be able to get through this, what support network do you have around you, are you able to reach out and connect with other people to help you through those times. And I think that for me, in that very kind of acute small time, it was about the team and the staff were just brilliant, and my family, because the team were obviously playing, my family were just amazing in that time. My sister in particular just gave me all of the energy that she had and belief that she had. She just passed it on to me, because there was a moment when I just thought, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can get back out there and play. I don't believe I have it within me. And she saw this flicker of doubt and was like, okay, you can, you will, I'm going to help you. And she just gave me that energy. And yeah, I'm very thankful to have her in my life. But then, at the same time, I'm so grateful to be part of a team that was just so professional and absolutely about their job and caring and supportive for me at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds like you had a lot of great support systems in place to help you through that. And just to ask a bit more about the both of you as a couple, how do you think, being on the same team, working together, training together, how do you think that has helped you guys grow stronger?
Well, I think we definitely learned a lot about how to kind of navigate that, for sure. We didn't probably get it right to begin with. For any couple that work together and are spending a huge amount of then time together at work and then at home, we learned that it was really important for us to kind of have time and space for each different parts of our identities. I think to begin with, because we played a sport, and when you do that, it's 24/7. Everything that you eat, how much you sleep, everything that you do in your life, you're always thinking about how it's going to impact on training the next day, or hockey in general. And so it's constant. And we were, often drive home from training together, and we'd sit in the car for half an hour just kind of debriefing the day. And we took it home constantly. And over time, we learned that we needed to make sure we had time for us as a couple, us as teammates at hockey, but then also time for ourselves individually. And when we started to really understand that, it was great. And we always loved being in the team together. When we went away on long trips, we didn't have to say goodbye to anybody, which was great. And to stand on that podium together was amazing. And it definitely made us stronger as a couple. Last year in the pandemic, all of the stuff that we learned about ourselves within hockey, and all the fantastic work that we did with our psychologist on our self-awareness helped last year no end. When we're kind of stuck in a house together 24/7 and, couldn't really go anywhere. And we had a newborn baby as well. And everything that we learned really helped us in that time. So yeah, it's definitely made us stronger as a couple, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like we often do keynotes or presentations, and I feel like the question that I get asked the most is how do you work together? Because lots of people who are in couples, and they go away to work in normal times, and they have that time, the quite short amounts of time at the end of the day. And then all of a sudden they were thrust into this space where they were both working together at the kitchen table, and it's like, what, she talks so loudly, and why does he have to take all the space up? And this hilarious kind of conversations that ensue. And actually we say, well, it's actually just communication, like actually talking to one another. And we had to go back to all the things we'd learned. As Helen said, where are you at today, Helen? And just to be able to look at Helen and say, do you know what, I'm really struggling today, Helen. I'm feeling really low. I don't know why it is. I've got low energy, low mood. This is where I'm at. This is what I can do today. This is what I know I can't do. Where are you at? And can we, find a way to get through this day together? And I think, I feel really grateful, as Helen said, that we learned so many lessons about ourselves and each other, and how to manage our state and work with people, however you're feeling, however they're feeling, and still get the best out of both of you. So I feel like that it has definitely made us stronger as people and as a couple, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I can see how that's made you both stronger. Would you say that your relationship has had any impact on maybe the team dynamic?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, it's something that we were certainly very aware of from the off. So, I mean, we'd been playing hockey together since we were kind of 16, 17. And been friends, and then our relationship didn't begin until kind of 2008. And we were very aware of the potential negative impact on the team initially. And we were very cautious, I think, about, talking to the team and talking to our coaches about it. And, we started our relationship, and we had to have a really uncomfortable conversation with our coach right at the honeymoon phase of our relationship, which, nobody wants to do that with their kind of boss. But he, and he raised his fears and his concerns, which was brilliant. He felt, there was enough safety in that relationship. We'd worked with him long enough that he could kind of put that out there, and, we could talk about how we saw it working within the team, and how we wanted to be very professional at hockey, and just Kate and Helen, separate entities, separate people as we'd always been. And outside of that would be be a couple. And we then had that conversation with the team as well, and the team were really supportive. And we just needed to be more conscious and aware of, time we spent together and what impact that was going to have on the team, and just listen to the team, I think. And I think if, again, I hope that we had that connection with players in the team, that we felt that they could say, the things were making them feel uncomfortable, or they had a way to express that, maybe not through us, but through another person if they had felt uncomfortable. And I felt safe in the knowledge, and I felt trusted that we had that psychological safety within that group, and the ability to just talk about those things, which I think was really important.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you've both been an inspiration for so many young people. And I was just wondering, what would your advice be to any people in the LGBTQ plus community who are kind of eager to get involved in sports but were a bit nervous? Like, what would your advice to them be?
I mean, it's incredibly hard. And, I think, Nelson Mandela, in his speech at I don't know what year it was, Laureate Awards, said that sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to impact people like nothing else does. And it does have that power, and it does have that ability, but it not just because it is so. It isn't absolutely safe and positive and happy place for everybody. And I think there is still a lot of homophobia, biophobia, transphobia, especially within sport. And I think it's about seeking out safe spaces, seeking out teams and organisations who are openly talking about, referencing, celebrating their LGBTQ plus community. And there are plenty of those out there. And I think, I always say there's a team for you somewhere, but I think it is about finding that team and finding that safe space. And we talk a lot about vulnerability, and I think, just naturally being in any marginalised community, you're putting yourself out there. It's hard. You're making yourself vulnerable, and I think you need to feel safe enough to be able to be your whole self. And I think it's about seeking that out personally.
Yeah,
I don't know what you say.
I think it is getting better. That's why we're approaching Stonewall's Rainbow Laces campaign, and which happens on a yearly basis, which football teams and other sports actually sign up to, and that visibility of athletes having rainbow laces in their shoes, or the captain wearing a rainbow armband, and football clubs, sports clubs being visible in that. That's why that's so important, because whenever I'm pretty comfortable with myself now. I wasn't so much when I was growing up, certainly. And whenever I see a rainbow, and it's because of that, then it makes me feel more comfortable. And so it's so important for organisations to be visible with their support and inclusion. And actually, I think sport for women probably is relatively, well, is a little bit more accepting and more safe than it is for men. I think there definitely is that difference, and we're always grateful in terms of playing sport. That we grew up in a sport that it was very accepted, and we could be ourselves a lot more than in other environments. But Kate's right. There are groups, there's supporters networks for different sports. There's lots of acceptance in many sports, and it is about seeking that out for sure.
I would just
finding your people.
No, definitely. I would just say that I think it is more accepting in a safe space for cis women. I think for trans women, it remains to be a very volatile space. I think sport is still, well, it's just very polarised, explosive, debating point at the moment. For me, there is no debate. Sport is for everybody, and we just need to find a way to make it work for everybody. But yeah, I think you're right on the whole. For cis women, it is much more safer than for trans women and for gay and bi men as well.
Yeah, and still remaining on this topic, what more do you think sports teams, governing bodies, what more do you think they can do to make sure that going forward we have sports teams that are more inclusive and that no one feels, attacked, no one feels singled out by, the rules in place?
Yeah, well, I think they need to be more visible. So I've said about that, and that it is happening, but it's not happening enough. It needs to be conscious and proactive. At the moment, even in hockey, for example, hockey clubs would say, "Oh yeah, we're inclusive, we accept everybody," but it's like, but how would anybody know that? You look at a hockey club, you look at a team, and you see white people, and generally pretty middle class. You wouldn't know if anybody's from the LGBT or LGB community more often than not, because there's not very many T's, like Kate said, within these clubs, and so you wouldn't know that they are inclusive. So they need to be more visible, and that's I think one thing that is relatively easy to do. You're going to say something, no. And then it's about, particularly in certain sports where there's a lot of fans. Not so much in hockey. I'm thinking of football, rugby, cricket. All those things. They need to really stamp down on any discriminatory behaviour. They need to stand up and speak out for any behaviour that is unacceptable. It just can't be tolerated. And we see what can happen when fans. For example, when the big six football clubs wanted to have their breakaway league, we saw the impact that fans could have, and the people could have, and even government. Boris Johnson got involved in that and stopped that breakaway league from happening. Why doesn't that happen for racism and sexism and homophobia? Why don't people want to stop that from happening? And so there more can be done in terms of actually stamping out this discriminatory behaviour that happens far too often.
I think fundamentally for me as well, I agree with everything that Helen said, and also I think organisations and governing bodies and key stakeholders need to look at who is at the table, who is part of conversations in how funding is dished out, how are talent pathways built, who are their coaches, which schools are the sports being played in, who are you actively reaching out to and having conversations with. And I think it's, for me, we're just so far away from an equitable playing field where sport truly is for every single person. And I think a lot of that for me is where power is held, who is making decisions, who holds the purse strings, who are the gatekeepers. It is still very homogenous. It's still very, as Helen said, in our sport particularly, that we know very well, it's very white, middle class, cisgendered, heterosexual. It is able-bodied. Unless you have a difference of people building things for every person, things just naturally get missed, and I think a lot of it is subconscious. But the conversation has moved on, and actually that's not an excuse anymore, and it's not a reason to not be able to be exploring these things. We have to actively be doing something about it. So for me, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I know sometimes we need to kind of challenge the status quo, and for now, and before, the status quo has been men's sports getting more funding, getting more attention. So how do you think we can really work to get women's sports, on an equal playing field and make sure that they're getting the support, the training they need to, compete and aren't just being left as an afterthought?
I mean, God, there's so much to be done, and it has improved so much since when we first started playing hockey. Yeah. It really has improved, but what we need to not fall into that kind of, the trap of being so grateful. Oh, we're so grateful for these little crumbs. Actually, we're training the same amount. We are on less money, for less opportunity, for less broadcasting opportunities, for less media rights, for less of everything, but we are giving the same. And I think, you see it with the women's football, with the WSL. And they're still on a massive journey, but they're just a bit of an increase in funding, and it is only still not even the whole of that WSL, but probably at least a half of, if not 2/3 of the teams in that now getting, good, decent wages. Nothing compared to if you look at the Men's Premier League, but they're able to train full time with better facilities, with better coaching, with better, and it's getting better. The quality therefore is improving. So more people think, I want to watch that. Broadcasters want to put it on. Sponsors want to sponsor it, and round the cycle goes. So it is
self-fulfilling, isn't it?
It's totally self-fulfilling, yeah. And so but it has to start somewhere. So whether that starts with somebody saying, okay, I'm going to put it on TV, I'm going to put it on this free-to-wear channel, I'm going to put it where somebody can see it. And then somebody might want to sponsor it, and somebody might want to then enable those top athletes to train full-time. And then it will just keep building and growing. And I think cricket are doing that really well with the 100, the men's and women's cricket kind of side by side. Rugby started to do it, but I think they've fallen away again. And they're kind of the big sports, men's sports, that get a lot of the attention. I think that's where it has to start. I think it has to start with those big marquee sports, and then I think kind of behind that, I think everybody else can kind of jump on the coattails.
Yeah, which is why it comes back to Kate's point about who's at the table, making those decisions, and that's why you need those different voices, because otherwise it will just be the same people, the same sponsors giving their money to the same sports, the same male sports, and that's why you need that diversity. That's a prime example of that.
Yeah, definitely. I know as Olympic athletes, there must have been immense pressure put on you at a lot of times. So how have you kind of dealt with failure or not doing as well as you've expected over the years, and, made sure that you're still prioritizing your mental health as you've gone on?
Yeah, I mean, I think
prioritising mental health.
Well, we didn't do that.
No, we didn't.
We didn't do that at all. I mean, we didn't do that because mental health was only a phrase that probably came into our consciousness in the last few years of our career. Thankfully, it's being spoken about loads now, which is great. And I'm the psychologist at Spurs Women, and as the athletes that are in that team, they talk about it all the time, which is fantastic. But for us, we just played, and it wasn't spoken about. And actually, I think failure for me personally was something that just drove me on even more and even greater, and just gave me even more determination to keep going. And even through the injuries that I had, it just made me more determined, which then probably worsened my mental health, because it was more all-encompassing than anything else. And it wasn't until I hit rock bottom in 2014 when I realised I needed to actually think about my mental health, and I started to I took medication and also saw a therapist, which kind of got me out of the very dark hole that I was in. And then I started to explore mindfulness, and that was something that was really great for me, because I experienced quite bad negative thoughts, and I'd get into a really negative spiral. And mindfulness was fantastic at kind of allowing those thoughts to come in, and not to judge those thoughts, and not allow those thoughts or feelings for me to think, oh, that's who I am and what I am, and actually just notice them as thoughts and feelings. That's all they are. That's not who I am. And then those thoughts, I could let those thoughts go. And that was, something that I still do now. I still practice mindfulness because it's something that I found really useful. So yeah, I think I learned how to do it. And as athletes, we trained physically hard, and then we would have rest days. for our muscles to recover to then go again. And now I've learned that actually you have to do the same with your brain and your emotions. And stress is good. Stress is really important. That's where you grow. That's where you kind of develop as a person, getting out your comfort zone. But you need time to recover and mentally recover, emotionally recover, to then go again. And that's the bit we didn't have, and that's the bit that I learned the hard way, unfortunately.
You're just talking about it as well.
Yeah.
I think that you said it wasn't in our consciousness, and I think just whether it was, and probably not within the team initially, it would be with that kind of outside specialist practitioners or kind of the doctors. And thankfully, because of our kind of medical insurance, we had access to, those specialist practitioners and therapists and counsellors, which, lots of people can't afford and are ridiculously long waiting lists for. So we were very fortunate and grateful to have had that. And that enabled us then to start having conversations within the team as well, which I think helped. It helped us to talk about it. And then I remember we went to that mental health first aid course, you and I, and there was an analogy there of a kind of a stress bucket, and we all have different size stress buckets, and they're all different, and we need, it can get too full. As Helen said, stress isn't a bad thing, but it can overflow, and we need a little tap to kind of release some of that stress. And so you need things in your life to, whether it's talking to somebody, whether it's, doing an activity or something that's going to help you relieve some of that stress or take some of that stress away. And I think it just was a really important process for lots of the team to just have that expert, external opinion, point of view, touch point, to just share very openly, without judgment, all the things that you're experiencing, feeling and going through. And I think we all need that, because we're all experiencing levels of stress and pressure and other things in our life, aren't we? So
yeah, definitely. Like, I think in sports and in other things, there's always going to be ups and there's always going to be downs, and it's important to, have a support system going through that. I was wondering what you would probably say is like your proudest achievement. I know, obviously, we've already seen one of them, but yeah, if there's anything you'd like to share on that.
Are you going to say the same thing?
probably, go on.
Well, for me, I think it was actually challenging the status quo. It was, it started for the London Olympic Games, where, before that London Olympics, we'd lost our funding because we didn't qualify for Athens. And then for the London, it was like, right, an injection of funding, and you've got a chance to do something different. And it was put to us to train full time. And the women's team grabbed it. The men's team chose not to go down that route, but the women's team, we grabbed that because we saw this as an opportunity to do something different. And we were criticised by people inside and outside of hockey, inside and outside of the country within hockey, and but we knew we needed to change what we were doing. Otherwise, we would have kept finishing 8th or 6th or 5th or wherever, but not really competing for medals on the world stage. And it changed everything. We trained for the Olympics, we aimed for gold, we didn't quite make it, but we got the bronze medal. And yeah, it created the culture that allowed us to be a successful team. And so that's the thing I'm most proud of, being part of that initial group that knew we needed to do something different and actually just went for it, regardless of what other people thought.
I think for me, it absolutely that. And I think part of that was the amount of time we spent with our psychologists on our self-awareness, both in that London cycle, but then also in that latterly in the lead up to Rio, and then just how much growth there was in the women that we played alongside and with. And I think just, being part of creating an environment that was really about helping everybody thrive, I think was one of the most impressive, important, proud moments of my life. And it's something that I want to now be doing in my life. I want to constantly help people and teams create those environments where everybody has the opportunity to be the very best version of themselves, because isn't that what we all deserve? And but it's quite rare. We go into so many different organisations and companies around the world, and it is so very rare to have those spaces, and we again feel very grateful and lucky that we were empowered to help build that. And we all felt we had value, and we all felt we had worth, and we all felt we had a role. And I think building that and seeing those women thrive in that environment was something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, and I know obviously hockey at a grassroots level is growing, but do you think COVID has had like a really big impact on like hindering that? And what are your opinions on the effect of COVID on hockey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what any of kind of official figures say, but just from our experience of being involved in our own hockey clubs, so we both coach hockey teams, different clubs, and having spoken as well to lots of people within the hockey world, there seems like there's been a bit of a drop-off. So we're struggling for availability across the different teams across the club, and it does feel like, I don't know what it is, whether, some people just suddenly felt, without that commitment to hockey or what, the sport, that suddenly they thought, oh, I quite like my weekends off, or, don't want to be committed to a weekend and 2 training sessions a week, and actually I quite like that freedom. So on a grassroots level, it does feel like it has had a bit of a negative impact, if I'm honest, which obviously isn't great. So, yeah, and I don't know whether it's just the kind of initial stages. I don't know whether actually there's still a little bit of fear in terms of people not sure about COVID, which would be completely understandable, and whether actually, next season it might start to come back. Who knows?
Yeah. I think it's different, but it's probably different area to area. But some people couldn't wait to get back out and playing, and then others, as Helen said, were really fearful. I think there's been real positive stories. So we work with Access Sport, it's a charity that helps disadvantaged and disabled young people, in particular, but all ages, really get into sport. And we've been really part of their Flyers program, so developing that inclusive hockey, so particularly for young people with disabilities. And lots of the teams went online, and they did some brilliant sessions online. I think, how can you do a hockey session online? But sticks were sent out if they didn't have sticks, or the specialist equipment, and they just ran sessions out through Zoom and Teams and everything else, and they kept it going. They kept that sense of togetherness and development and fun. So there have been some really nice stories to come out of it as well, which has been nice.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been really incredible hearing about your journey, especially, you said you were both coaching teams, hearing about what you're doing now after, reaching that Olympic gold standard. I think it's definitely been really insightful and amazing talking to you both today. And I think if everyone would just join me in giving our guests one more round of applause, just for this